Someone told me recently they've been investing for 3 years, consistently, every single month. They have the app, they check it most mornings, they read the articles, they rebalanced twice last year because a financial newsletter told them to. Then I asked them one simple question: what's your portfolio's average annual return? They didn't know. And that's the real problem, because in 2026, most investors are busy, but busy and effective are two very different things. People are doing something with their money, but most of them are working from an outdated blueprint that was designed for a world that no longer exists. Here's the thing about the classic 3-fund portfolio. It was built in the 1990s. The internet barely existed. Companies did most of their business within their own borders. The rules of investing were different. That's not the world your money is working in today. So in this video, I want to show you exactly which 3 ETFs belong in a modern portfolio, why the old version quietly costs investors hundreds of thousands of dollars over a lifetime of investing, and one shift in thinking that changes how you look at your portfolio permanently. And the part most people miss? It's not about chasing the highest return in any single category. It's about building a portfolio where 3 pieces work together. That's the difference, and it's worth more than most people realize. Here's the system: 3 ETFs, 1 foundation, 1 stability layer, 1 growth engine. No daily monitoring required, no panic decisions when the market drops, no guessing which sector is about to run. If you invest $500 a month into the right combination of these 3 funds, stay consistent, and let time do the work, over 20 years, you could be looking at roughly $550,000. That's without picking a single stock, without reading a single earnings report. Compare that to just saving $500 a month for those same 20 years. That gives you $120,000. Same money in, completely different outcome. The difference isn't luck, it's structure. Let me show you what the old version actually costs you in real numbers. The traditional 3-fund portfolio used bonds as its safety mechanism. A broad bond ETF, something like BND, was supposed to stabilize your portfolio when markets got rough. The problem, BND has delivered roughly 1.5% annually over the past decade. That's below inflation. You're not protecting your money sitting in bonds. You're slowly losing purchasing power while telling yourself you're being responsible. Put $50,000 into BND today. In 10 years, you'd have roughly $58,000. That's $8,000 of growth on $50,000 over a full decade. That's the real cost of the old safe strategy. The international slot is a similar story. The original 3rd fund was typically a global ex-US ETF like VXUS. The logic was diversification. Don't bet everything on America. That logic made sense before globalization rewrote the rules. But Apple sells in 175 countries. Amazon operates on 6 continents. The biggest American companies already are international. Their revenue comes from everywhere. Owning a separate international fund in 2026 just adds currency risk, political risk, and complexity for an average annual return of roughly 5% over the last decade. 2 of the 3 slots were quietly dragging the old portfolio down. That's the problem we're fixing. Category 1, the foundation. This one stays the same from the original 3-fund model, and for good reason. A broad US market ETF, either tracking the S&P 500 or the total US stock market, is the anchor for everything else. Think of it as the foundation of a building. The rest of the structure only holds if this part is solid. The historical data is compelling. Since 1950, the S&P 500 has delivered positive returns in 83% of all 5-year periods and 92% of all 10-year periods. For any 20-year holding period in that history, positive returns, every single time. That doesn't mean every year is painless, but time in the market consistently has never failed over the long run. 2 solid choices here. VOO from Vanguard tracks the S&P 500. VTI from Vanguard tracks the total US stock market, a few thousand companies instead of 500. Both have expense ratios under 0.05%. Both do the same essential job. Pick one. Keep it there. Don't overthink this slot. Category 2, the stability layer, replacing bonds. This is where the old portfolio breaks down and where the update makes the biggest difference. Instead of a bond ETF, the modern version uses a high-quality dividend ETF. The one I want to highlight is SCHD, the Schwab US Dividend Equity ETF. Here's the core difference between bonds and a fund like SCHD. Bonds give you a small, stable payout, but they barely grow. A quality dividend ETF gives you a payout and it compounds over time. BND, roughly 1.5% average annual return over the last 10 years. SCHD, roughly 10% average annual return over the same period, plus a quarterly dividend that has grown every year. Put $50,000 in BND, you're at around $58,000 in 10 years. Put $50,000 in SCHD, roughly $130,000 in 10 years. That's the same time horizon, same starting amount, entirely different outcome. And as your balance builds over time, the dividend starts doing serious work. Once you've accumulated $500,000 in SCHD at its current yield of roughly 3.5 to 4%, that's approximately $17,500 to $20,000 in annual dividend income, around $1,500 a month, without ever touching the principal. The portfolio keeps growing on top of it. What separates SCHD from just grabbing the highest yielding dividend ETF? Quality filtering. SCHD selects companies based on dividend consistency, free cash flow, and financial strength, not just current yield. Its holdings include companies like Broadcom, AbbVie, Home Depot, and Chevron, businesses that have paid and grown their dividends through recessions, rate hikes, and market crashes. One potential drawback, SCHD tends to underperform the broad market in aggressive bull runs. It's not designed to chase growth, it's designed to hold through everything. That's exactly the point of this slide. Category 3, the growth engine, replacing international. This is where the old portfolio left the most money on the table. The original third slot was international exposure, VXUS or something similar. As I mentioned, that thinking doesn't hold up in 2026. Globalization already gave the largest American companies international reach. You're not missing out by not owning a separate international fund. You're just adding complexity without enough return to justify it. The updated third slot is a growth ETF, specifically QQQM, the Invesco Nasdaq 100 ETF. QQQM tracks the Nasdaq 100 index. Apple, Microsoft, Nvidia, Amazon, Meta, Alphabet, Tesla. It's not a bet on one AI company or one hot sector. It's ownership in the most innovative, fastest growing businesses in the economy. The expense ratio is 0.15%, exceptionally low, and using QQQ's longer track record as a proxy, QQQM tracks the identical index, the Nasdaq 100 has delivered roughly 18% annually over the last 10 years. 18% versus 5%. That's what the growth slot is supposed to deliver. One trade-off to be clear about, QQQM falls harder in bear markets than the broader S&P 500. In 2022, it dropped significantly more than VTI or VOO. That's the price of higher long-term returns, more volatility in the short term. This is the risk-taking slot in the portfolio. If you're not willing to hold through 30 to 40% drawdowns, this category needs to be sized accordingly. Other solid alternatives worth researching: VUG from Vanguard, SCHG from Schwab, MGK, Vanguard Mega Cap Growth. I'd be cautious about single-sector AI or semiconductor ETFs with only a few years of data. This portfolio is built to run for decades, not to time a cycle. Allocation. How you split across the three comes down to your timeline and how much volatility you can honestly tolerate. A simple starting framework: building aggressively, 20+ years away from retirement, about 40% foundation, 20% dividend, and 40% growth. Balanced approach, 1/3 each. Invest monthly, don't adjust based on headlines. Within 10 years of retirement, shift toward dividend, about 50% dividend, 35% foundation, and 15% growth. The most important allocation decision isn't the exact percentage split. It's the decision to stay consistent when the portfolio drops 25% and every financial headline is telling you the world is ending. The investors who have built real wealth from this type of structure aren't the ones who optimized constantly, they're the ones who stayed. Here's what most people overlook about this portfolio. It's not just 3 ETFs sitting next to each other, it's 3 different jobs working simultaneously. The foundation captures broad market growth. The dividend layer provides income and cushion during downturns. The growth engine accelerates the total return over the long run. No single fund does all three well, but together they cover each other's weaknesses. And unlike building a portfolio of individual stocks, none of this requires you to predict the future.